Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Exosister Yugioh deck profile for February 2025. The Exosister deck is a banish playstyle type of deck that focuses on being able to make use of the many different Exosister main deck monsters, setting up the different Xyz monsters we run for extra special summon options and search power for our different Exosister spell and traps to then set up our bigger boss monster, being the Exosister Magnifica, with more of an option to then have the option of special summoning out a different Exosister monster using this card. Very, very happy with the playstyle of this deck. It's definitely a fun Banished Xyz deck if you're looking to build one, with also the, waifu aspect behind them. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Exosister monsters, we're running 3 copies of Exosister Martha. With this card, if you control no monsters or only Xyz monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, special summon one Exosister Ellis from your deck. You cannot special summon any other monsters that interact with this effect except for your Exosister monsters. But being able to have that option for the special summon gives you more of a playstyle setup for the monsters that you summon out onto the field. And if a card moves out of either graveyard except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Xyz monster using this face-up card you control as material. It's treated as an Xyz summon. So a 1-card Xyz summon, but also just being able to grab our next monster as well, which is Exosister Alice, is a big help there. If you control an Exosister monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then if you control Exosister Stella, you gain 800 life points. If your opponent moves a card out of their graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Xyz monster using this face-up card you control as material, and it's treated as an Xyz summon, having the same playstyle as Martha, but this one being able to have a special summon option if you control an Xyz monster, and then also that extra power, being able to gain life points if it was Exosister Stella. That's what you'll see with the Exosister monsters. They all just work very well with that setup of their Xyz plays by utilizing different plays that your opponent does also. For the other Exosister monsters, we're running 2 copies of Exosister Stella. So if you have Stella on the field, then you have the special summon for Ellis as that added life point gain. During your main phase, you can special summon one Exosister monster from your hand. Then if you control Exosister Alice, you gain 800 life points. If your opponent moves a card from their graveyard or out of their graveyard, either except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck one Exosister Xyz monster you control, and it's treated as an Xyz summon. So this is more or less just a way to grab other Exosister monsters from your hand. That's why we're just running lower numbers for Stella. She doesn't really help as much for the added resources. Alice can be special summoned out from other Exosister monsters. You just gain that added support if you have Stella on the field, and Martha can grab your Alice. That's why we're running the additional numbers of both of these cards as well. We're also running 2 copies of Exosister Sophia for the added setup with this card. If you control another Exosister monster, you can draw 1 card. Then if you control no Exosister Irene, you gain 800 life points. So with this card, if your opponent moves a card out of their graveyard, you can special summon 1 monster from your extra deck using an Exosister Xyz monster, and this face-up card is material. So then once again, just a 1-card Xyz summon, having the draw power just by controlling another Exosister monster makes Sophia a little better of a setup on the field compared to Stella, because you'll actually gain those life points and other easy special summon plays as well. And then lastly, the 1 copy of Exosister Irene, being able to place 1 Exosister card from your hand on the bottom of your deck to draw 1 card. Then if you control Exosister Sophia, you can gain 800 life points if your opponent moves a card out of their graveyard, having the same Xyz play as the other ones as well. This is just a 1-of tech, so we have the added targets for our life point gain with Sophia, and just a 1-card recycle using our Exosister cards, so any of the 1-of spells or traps that we run can be recycled back into the deck to be searched off of other cards. We're also running, just for the added Xyz setup, the small Spirit Engine, so the 3 copies of Aratama, and then the 2 copies of Sakitama. It cannot be special summoned once returned during the end phase if it was normal summon, or flip face up. Return this card to the hand. When it's normal summon or flip face up, you can add 1 Spirit Monster from your deck to your hand, except Aratama. So then you can use this card to grab Sakitama, and then having this card use the added ability, being able to reveal this card immediately afterwards, normal summon a Spirit Monster from your hand. If this card's tributed, target a Spirit Monster in your graveyard, add it back to your hand. Having the added normal summon to add that other Spirit Monster for our Aratama, and then set up the Sakitama play for another normal summon to give us that additional Xyz setup on the field. For our hand trap lineup, we're running 3 copies of Dimension Shifter, just one of the better cards to make use of with the Banish playstyle in the deck, since we can really disrupt our opponent's graveyard plays thanks to this card, and we're running other hand traps that will not be affected by the added setup of our Dimension Shifter, so ones that just have to be discarded and not, to the graveyard. 3 copies of Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, and 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Once again, these cards just have to be discarded, so they can still be banished to achieve their hand trap abilities. For the spells, we're running 3 copies of Exosister Pax. It is a quick play spell during the main phase. Pay 100 life points. Add 1 Exosister card from your deck to your hand, except for Pax. Then if you added a monster by this effect, you can special summon it. If the other Exosister monster mentioned on it is on your field or in your graveyard, you can activate 1 Exosister Pax per turn. So this is another reason why we run the 1-of copy of Irene. So we have the target to summon out if we have our Exosister Sophia on the field, and vice versa using both of these cards. We're also running the 1 copy of Exosister Carpe Diem with this card. Neither player can target Exosister monsters you control with effects of monsters that were special summoned from the graveyard. You go and use each of the following effects of Carpe Diem once per turn. And if you summon an Exosister monster with this card on the field, you can declare 1 card name, negate the activated effects of that card on the field with that original name until the end of this turn. And when its attack is declared involving your Exosister monster, you can target 1 spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy it. Destruction power, but it is a 1-of just because it can be searched off of other cards in the deck, whether it be our Exosister Pax or some of the other cards in the extra deck. And then for the rest of the spells, 3 copies of Crossout Designator. We do have the Ghost Mourner, Moonlit Chill, the Ash Blossom, and a couple other 1-ofs that can be used with this card to interrupt our opponent's plays, and even the option for that setup to be able to use the 1-of copy of Pot of Prosperity. We run plenty of copies of the different Exosister Xyz, so if we have to banish a couple to search the top cards of our deck, it's very usable to do so. And lastly, the 1 Call by the Grave, along with the Crossout Designator, just additional quick plays to make use of in the deck also. For the traps, we're running 2 copies of Exosister Returnia. If all monsters you control are Exosister monsters, pay 800 life, target 1 card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, banish it, then you can apply 1 of the following effects. You can immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon 1 Exosister Xyz monster using monsters you control, or if you Xyz summon this turn, banish 1 card your opponent controls, having a banish option on our own turn, or just the added play to be able to Xyz summon during our opponent's turn using this card, and then also being able to banish that additional card our opponent controls or in their graveyard. We're also running the 1 copy of Exosister Vadis, paying 800 life points to choose 1 Exosister monster in your graveyard. Then take 1 other Exosister monster from your deck that is mentioned on that monster, special summon both, but shuffle them into the deck during the end phase. And for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon except from the extra deck, except for Exosisters. But good, once again, for that added special summon option, and then being able to make use of them before the end phase, because you will have them shuffled back into the deck, with the last of our traps being the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Once again, just another hand trap spot, along with the Ghost Mourners and the Ash Blossoms, and another target with Crossout Designator if need be. For the extra deck, we're running 3 copies of Exosister Michaelis. It cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster special summon from the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Michaelis once per turn. If you control this card with a Xyz summon using an Exosister monster material, you can target 1 card your opponent controls from the graveyard and banish it. You could detach 1 from this card to add 1 Exosister spell trap from your deck to your hand. Here's the additional search I mentioned for the 1-of Exosister cards that we run. Just being able to make this monster, which also just requires 2 level 4 monsters, but the added bonus if we use an Exosister monster, a definite 3-of to always have that staple and additional targets to go into when we make our Exosister Magnifica. Needing 2 rank 4 Exosister Xyz monsters, it must be Xyz summoned with the above materials. It can make a second attack during each battle phase, and once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from this card, banish 1 card your opponent controls, and when your opponent activates a card effect, quick effect, you can return 1 Xyz monster you own attached to this card or in the extra deck. Then you can special summon that monster from your extra deck by using this card you control as material. Once again, this is why I mentioned being able to go into other Exosister Xyz monsters by using this card, and also just have having more of a powerhouse for a banish of a card our opponent controls, and the 2 attacks it can make per turn also. We're also running the 2 copies of Exosister Capistel. With this card, it can be from a battle with a monster special summon from the graveyard once again. And then also with this card, you can only use it to fall effects of Capistel once per turn. If it's Xyz summon using an Exosister monster's material, the player can special summon from the graveyard for the rest of this turn, and you can detach 1 to add 1 Exosister monster from your deck to your hand. So it's a 2 of because it is the monster search that we can make use of in the deck to be able to search out some more of our starters like Martha, and then also the 1 of copies of our Exosister Asophiel and the 1 copy of Exosister Gabrine for the added setup using both of these cards, being able to target monster our opponent controls, return to the hand with Asophiel, and then the attack boost for our Xyz monsters with Gabrine. For the rest of the Xyz monsters, 1 copy of Exciton Knight, along with the 1 Baguska, the 1 Sky Crisis, and the 1 Zeus, with the rest of the extra deck being the 1 Artemis and the 1 SP Little Knight as added measures to use against our opponent if they dimensional bury us, and also just a way to set up the Link 1 to go into Magis's Moon Maiden, and then having the additional monster on the field to then go into the Little Knight with a target for the banish. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I mentioned before, the Xyz setup is a big part of it. Having Martha just being a special summon if we control Xyz monsters or no monsters, then special summoning an Ellis from our deck sets up that play right then and there. We are locked into the Xyz plays for special summoning from the deck for the rest of the turn, but we then have the overlay of our 2 monsters to then be able to use for that Xyz play of cards like our Exosister Michaelis, and then having that initial summon to also use this card to target a card our opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it, then having the detach 1 off of this card as well to search out a particular Exosister spell or trap from our deck to our hand. This can set up the additional setup depending on the trap that we search out using this card as well, or even grabbing one of the 1 of spells set up on the field ready for us to use. Then if we go for that additional play as well for this card, we can have the summon using cards like Exosister Pax to then add a monster by this effect to special summon it for that play, grabbing a specific Exosister monster as well to then use for that summon. We can grab our Exosister Stella, then using this card to special summon an Exosister monster from our hand. So if we do have an additional Exosister monster, having the additional draw if we summon off cards like Sophia, the cycling if it's Irene, but then we can overlay the 2 of these monsters as well to go into an additional Exosister monster. Depending on the one we go into, it could have a shutdown of our opponent's plays, and then we can use those 2 monsters to then climb into our bigger boss monster Magnifica using those 2 level 4 Xyz monsters. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, wanted to update this very fun waifu Xyz deck for everyone who still is a fan of the Exosister deck. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.